أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Tuesday night program of Dua Tawassul. Inshallah, we'll get started with the recitation of Dua. And then followed by a brief discussion on what we've been discussing in Sahifa Sajjadiyyah, Dua number 2. For the recitation of Dua Tawassul, I would request Rahil to go ahead and start us off. Bismillah.
Dua Tawassul. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma inni as'aluka wa atawajjahu ilayk binabiyyika nabiyyir rahmah محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسيع الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله حاجات. يا سادتي ومواليا إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فخري وهاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنكذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you very much for that beautiful recitation. Inshallah, very quickly we will go over dua number 2 from Sahifa Sajjadiyyah, as we've been discussing from the kalam of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال علي بن الحسين عليهما الصلاة والسلام حتى استتب له ما حاول في أعدائك واستتم له ما دبر في أوليائك فنهد إليهم مستفتحا بعونك ومتقويا على ضعفه بنصرك. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Discussing the second dua, as we have been for the last couple of weeks. We are pretty much coming to the end of the second dua as well, where the second dua, let me just remind those who haven't been able to follow in the past, or those who are joining us for the first time. First dua was about the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as fittingly, it's the kalam of our fourth Imam. He begins by praising God Almighty. And then the very second dua is about the praise of the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, in this second dua, when Imam is talking about Rasulullah, you'd imagine that Imam would touch upon, the features of Rasulullah, which we may have heard in the books of Sirat, biographies and history of Rasulullah. And that is true. Imam goes and refers to and gives reference to some of those things. But more so, Imam talks about the daunting task of Rasulullah, the difficulty of leading from front and, sent in that environment of Makkah, where his own family is standing up against him, threatened that he's going to derive them away from the religion of their forefathers. And of course, when you're threatened, you feel threatened that way, that some sort of power will be taken away from you, right away you revolt. So when Rasulullah was trying to propagate the deen, it was his own who have shown confrontation, and who had opposed him more so than those who were from outside. A lot of the outsiders were more open to this invitation than his own family members and relatives. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, you begin with your family. And if you're able to convince them, then you can convince anyone else. But if you have hard time convincing your own family, then it's not that you will have success outside as well. But of course, you have the backing from the God Almighty. You are being sent by him to perform this task. And as he has never done so, he will never forsake you. Some people thought after the first revelation, there was a gap of the second revelation. And a lot of people started questioning and trying to make Rasulullah feel bad on that occasion, where saying that Allah never spoke to him to begin with, or if he did speak to him, he no longer wants to speak to him. Maybe it was a one-off, and this was something which we should not have signed up for. So a lot of people start casting their doubts on Rasulullah, and there were some prominent companions, even when things had established to a great extent, they started questioning the judgment of Rasulullah. They started questioning his decisions more than anything. So this is very heartbreaking, and for someone of his caliber, who's standing there, has nothing to gain, and has given everything for the sake of people, to go ahead and criticize him like this. So that's why you had this group of munafiqeen. So there were these definite munafiqeen that existed at that time who questioned Rasulullah on numerous occasions. And by them questioning Rasulullah on numerous occasions, it ended up, it was bound to get weak. The religion was bound to get weak. When you have weakness internally, then of course things break apart very easy. It's easy to break someone or something when you have broken them from inside. And it's easy to point out the danger which lies outside than the internal danger. So a lot of time the internal danger is hidden, but the external danger is right in front of you. So when the danger is right in front of you, something which is attacking you from outside, you can go about doing something. For example, there's an imminent threat of flooding, in your area, for example, due to torrential rains. You are given a heads up that hurricane is coming and there'll be torrential rains and it'll cause flooding. So you can start preparing for that. Or other such, disasters where you've been given a window of safeguarding yourself so you can protect yourself. But there's an internal enemy that exists, and how are you going to protect yourself when you don't know? There are no alarms. That's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his mercy, had the back of Rasulullah. On numerous occasions, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala foiled the plots set by munafiqeen, Jibreel Amin would come and inform Rasulullah of the intentions of certain people who were creeping in and getting closer and plotting against Rasulullah and trying to murder him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would go ahead and tell Rasulullah in advance. So these are a few places which were, of course, required still courage on behalf of Rasulullah. So the Imam goes really in depth of talking about those challenges that Rasulullah had faced and then how he coped with them. So these challenges not only helped Rasulullah, and not from the aspect that he was a ma'soom, so it helped him, but these are the things which, if a person like you and I, infallibles, we're not infallibles or fallibles, those who are prone to making mistakes, if we put these principles to practice, then we'll be able to achieve similar results. So he said, حتى استتبع له ما حاول في أعدائك, until what he attempted against your enemies. You know, attempted against your enemies went well with him, and what he arranged for your friends was accomplished. He rose up against them, seeking victory through your aid, becoming strong in spite of his weakness with your help. So Prophet's struggle is explained here. We talked about it last week as well, so I won't dwell too much into it tonight. Later on, Imam alayhi you know, continues in this line, and he says in the next, he says, فغزاهم في أقر ديارهم وهجم عليهم في بحبوحة قرارهم حتى ظهر أمرك وعلت كلمتك ولو كره المشركون. So the translation is in front of you. He fought against them in the center of their cities. Look at some of the vocab which is being used here. Ghaza, you know, from Ghazwa, of course, we're the known word over here for us is the Ghazwa. So there were battles that Rasulullah took part in. They were called either Ghazwa or Sariya. So this is referring towards the Ghazawat of Rasulullah. So he said, you know, Rasulullah, he فغزا عليهم فغزاهم في أقر ديارهم, that he did jihad. Uqr means the actual thing. Hajm is to attack, and buhbubatu shay, in the middle of something. And then qarar is the means, you know, place or destination. Alat is something which is raised high. Kalima means oneness and its branches. Prophet entered their houses or went towards them and called them to the path of one God. This was his jihad. He showed perseverance and didn't back down from any apparent obstacles that came in his way, or struggles that he faced, mishaps that might have happened because of the you know, lack of cooperation by the people. Even though the unbelievers and the polytheists were adverse to it, he went ahead with it. He said, you know, this is my job, this is my duty, just like how you and I, when things, you know, we have set out to do, at whatever the cost may be, we said, well, this is what we are getting paid to do. For example, we're going to go ahead and do this regardless of what may come. And so their determination really plays a vital role at that point. He says, وَهَجَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ فِي بُهْبُوتِ قَرَارِهِمْ حَتَّى ظَهَرَ أَمْرُهُ, until your command prevailed, command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your word rose up, though the idolaters were averse of it. So Rasul's perseverance, going in the heart, and you know, in the midst of those people who were against, to get the message right at the core, حَتَّى ظَهَرَ أَمْرُهُ, until your command prevailed and your word rose up, although there was a lot of opposition that he had to face. And then Imam goes further, he says, Allahumma farfa'hu. He said, Allahumma farfa'hu bima kadaha fika ila darajat al-ulya min jannati. Oh God, so raise him because of his labors for your sake, and to the highest degree of your garden, that none may equal him in station, none may match him in level, and no angel brought nigh or prophet sent out may parallel him in your sight. So if you look at the words, hatta la yusawa fi manzilatin, nobody's equal as far as the manzilat of Rasulullah is concerned. Wala yukafa'a fi martabatin, and no one will match him at his level. Wala yuwazinuhu ladayka malakun muqarrab, and cannot be compared with or put in a parallel, as the translator has done, with those angels that are muqarrab, malakun muqarrab, not just any angels, muqarrab, those who are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the closest. Wala nabiyyun mursal, and then not just those malakun muqarrab, but also no nabi would match such a place. The word means working out of difficulty and pain. So you might have heard of the ayat of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about humans, suffering and their nature. It says, "Ya ayyuhal insan, innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadahan famulaqi." This is ayat number 6 from chapter Al-Inshiqaq. So you got chapter 84, ayat number 6 talks about that. That human being, you strive hard to get closer to your Lord, and so you will certainly receive the compensation of your deeds. Ya ayyuhan nas innaka kadihun ila rabbik. Kadih or kadh over here, as Imam is referring to Rasulullah, meaning working out of difficulty and pain. So the suffering and the difficulty that you face, and not, it's relentless, and you just continue on with it. Uliya, superlative degree, and feminine for a'la. So you have these words in Arabic which are for mudakkar or muannas. So you have a'la, and then you have uliya. You have akbar and you have kubra. You have asghar, you have sughra. So you have a'la and you have uliya. Nabi, on the weight pattern of fa'il, is a person who delivers the news from Allah without the means of humans. And therefore, there's a difference between Nabi and Rasul, mentioned, where Rasul is also Sahib Shariat. He's also messenger. Nabi might just be the deliverer of the message or the news from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then Rasul brings his own Shariat as well. Own means that for his people, and therefore there are fewer Rasul than there are Nabi. All of them are Nabi, but amongst them there are certain people who are Rasul along with being Nabi as well. Muwazat, to compete or to be equal. It says, may Allah raise you to the highest place as the compensation for your hard work, and give you the highest place in paradise, which cannot be compared with anyone else. We read in Quran as well in chapter 17, verse number 79, that asa rabbuka an yab'athaka maqaman mahmuda. Asa an yab'athaka rabbuka maqaman mahmuda. That may be that your Lord will raise you to a praiseworthy station. I mentioned that this praiseworthy station is that Maqam Mahmud is the maqam which is the maqam of shafa'at. It is the maqam where Rasulullah would be doing intercession on our behalf, for example. And then other places in Quran as well. For example, in chapter 93, it says, "Wala sawfa yu'tika rabbuka fatarda." Soon your Lord will give you that which will please you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking out to go ahead and please his Nabi. Continuing with this discussion, Imam moves forward when he says, وَأَرِّفْهُ فِي أَهْلِهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ وَأُمَّتِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ min husn al-shafa'ati ajalla ma wa'adtahu, and inform him concerning his household and the pure and his community, the faithful, of an excellent intercession. So again, the concept of intercession is being discussed over, and I think I'll conclude with this last portion of it. Ya nafid al-iddati, ya wafi al-qawli, ya mubaddil al-sayyi'ati bi'adha'afiha min al-hasanati, innaka dhul fadl al-azim. O the keeper of promises, O faithful of your word, O he who changes evil deeds into manifold good deeds, you are the possessor of exalted virtues. All of this, Quran hints towards this concept that how a lot of time our bad deeds could be wiped away only if we, along with those minor sins that we've committed, as long as we stayed away from major sins, and as long as we continue to do good more than we have done evil. So it said in the hasanata yudhibna sayyi'at. Indeed, the good deeds drive away the evil ones. So you continue on this path of good, and you will see that eventually you'll be able to drive away the bad. This concept of when you've continuously done good, and if an opportunity presents itself where there's an opportunity to do something haram, you will feel ashamed, and you will have the shame within stopping you. There will be 1,000, blockers. There will be 1,000 obstacles in front of you, stopping you from committing that sin. While on the contrary, when you haven't done any good, then there are 1,000, shayateen that are forcing you to go ahead and do that bad. And it just becomes that much easier for you. And then Imam talks about over here, which is again hinted in the ayat, that Ya mubaddil as-sayyi'at bi'adha'afiha min al-hasanat. Oh, he who changes evil deeds into manifold good deeds, you are the possessor of the exalted virtues. That there's a concept in Quran which is mentioned for those who are close to Rasulullah, that their good deeds are, treated in a different way, and their bad are also treated in a different way, doubling the torment. Ya insan nabi man ya'ti minkunna bi fahishatin mubayyinatin yudha'af laha al-'adhabu dhi'fayn. Wives of the Prophet, if any of you commit flagrant indecency, her chastisement shall be doubled. This is Surah Ahzab, ayat number 30. Just a couple of ayat prior to ayat Tatir. The concept of doubling the chastisement. Imam Jafar Sadiq ﷺ also speaking to one of his companions, said, Ya Shaqrani, innal hasana min kulli adin hasanun, wa innahu minka ahsan. That a good deed is good from everyone, except from you, it's the best. Minka ahsan. Limakanika minka, because your relationship to us. Wa innal qabiha min kulli ahadin qabihun, wa innahu minka akhbah. And as far as bad or evil is concerned, it's bad from everyone, regardless of who does it. But it's worse when it comes from you, because of your relationship to us. Imam spoke to him in this way because Shaqrani had developed a bad habit of drinking. And so in order to strip him of doing this evil deed or committing this haram, Imam went from that direction. We're mentioning to him that not only that what you're doing is bad, but the adhab is doubled because of your relationship to us. So this is where the concept of shafa'at comes into play. And Imam ﷺ, when he speaks, Ya nafiz al-idda, Ya wafi al-qawla, that Allah is the one who, who keeps the promises. He orders us to keep promises. In Quran, it says, all those who believe, and those who keep their promises, those who pay off the amanat and the trust that they've been trusted with, or the concept of keeping the promise, and the uhud as well, keeping your promises that you have made at any level, regardless of what level you're, even if it's coming from a president making promises to his people, his cabinet members, a father making promises to his children. All of these promises, when they're broken, they hurt. So the word that is used for nufuz literally means to drill a hole, sometimes used for signature as well. That's signing something. Sayyat is a plural of sayya, meaning bad or evil. Here it means sin. Du'uf means double. And that's why, shafa'at is what? Shafa'at is double action. Shafa'at is basically, that's why the word shafa'a is opposed to the word watr. So you have namaz al-shafa', you have namaz al-witr. Witr is one, shafa'a is two. And why is it two? Because not only your action is standing up for itself, but someone else's intercession is also coming up. So the shafa'at then becomes twice. So when you do something, someone is backing you up with it. So that's where it has a more of a chance of being accepted in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one who fulfills his promises, who converts evil into good deeds and multiplies them. I'll stop over here as I've run out of my time. Inshallah, next week we'll try and conclude this dua number 2 from Sahifa Sajjadiyyah. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Mutawajjih ziyarah. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah, Assalamu alaikum ya Habib Allah, Assalamu alaikum ya Khiyarat Allah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. السلام عليك يا عبد الله، السلام عليك ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض طوس علي بن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، السلام عليك يا مام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.